Hello. In this video, I'd like to walk you through a habit building app that I developed called Rabbits. And before I get into explaining the interface behind the app, I'd like to explain the philosophy behind it and why I think it's an effective way to developing habits with ease and joy. I would like to emphasize as much as possible on the possibility of being able to develop multiple habits at the same time while enjoying the process. Unfortunately, many people have the impression that habit building is difficult because they've had past experiences that were difficult and they weren't able to sustain the habits that they wanted to develop. But my understanding of this is that the approach that they took to building habits wasn't an effective one, which is why they weren't able to sustain the changes that they want to make. Most habit building apps that exist have a strong emphasis on building a streak. And a lot of the advice that we get about building habits is based on building or sustaining a streak from day one. So think about it for a second. If you're just getting started with a habit, so it's new to you, you're not familiar with it, but you're expecting 100% consistency, then it's likely that you won't be able to stick to the habit because it's new to you. What I would focus on is building towards a streak instead of beginning with a streak. And part of the misconception or misunderstanding of habits is that we try to automate habits as much as possible. The definition of habits that we're aiming for is one where we do things without thinking about them. So the focus is on the automaticity or making the behavior our default behavior, which is why we try to be 100% consistent for an extended period of time until we develop this automaticity. What I would focus on is increasing the frequency of practicing the habit, getting familiar with the habit, and then with time you will develop this automaticity. But if you try to aim for it from the very beginning, most likely you will skip a day, which will demoralize you, and then you end up giving up on the habit. A broken streak does not mean that you've failed at the habit. And please just think about this. If you work on a habit for, let's say, you want to develop a habit and you want to practice it for 30 days, and then you miss day 23. This does not eliminate the fact that you've practiced the habit for 22 days. Giving up on the habit because you missed one day means that you've set a very high standard for yourself, which would lead to a high chance of failure because the standard is too rigid. Instead, if you say, okay, I skipped day 23, but I'll come back again at day 24 and then build up on what practice I've made, most likely you're moving towards automaticity and you're building on your successes rather than holding that one day you missed against you. And this is a huge part of why most people fail at building habits, because they give up because their standard was too high. It was too rigid. And I would even say, if you skip the habit on day 3, on day 4, on day 2, it still doesn't matter. Aim to get back at it the next day. Aim to increase the frequency that you practice the habit as much as possible. I'll explain some other philosophies as I describe using this web app that I built. Initially, it walks you through the main features. I'll just explain them very quickly. You're able to expand and collapse the sections that exist within your day. Expand all and collapse all with this button. You can bulk select habits in order to take action on a selection of habits at the same time. So if you want to drag them into a different part of the day, into a different section, you want to delete a chunk of habits that you don't want to commit to now, and so on. You can also get suggestions on the habits that you want to develop across multiple life areas, across different goals that you can have for yourself, across different recommended daily routines of successful people. We'll have a look at this in a bit. This is the inbox. If you've not decided where you want to practice the habit, when, during what part of the day you want to practice a habit. You begin by dumping everything that's on your mind in the inbox and then organizing it across the day. This is to add a new section to the day or to add habits or tasks. A habit is something that you will want to repeat. So adding a habit would mean that this will be added to future days. Adding a task would mean this is something you want to get done, but will only be added on the day that you add this task. These are the kinds of habits that the application supports, and I'll explain how you can add them. But essentially, the app is going to pick up on the type or what you write for the habit. If you mention a time or a duration, not a time, a duration, you want to practice something for 10 minutes, then it's going to pick up on this and it's going to add a timer. If you mention a count, 5 push-ups, 10 squats, something that involves a count, it's going to add a counter. If you add no or avoid, then at the beginning of the habit, it's going to add this no sign. So it's clear that you're trying to avoid something. The habit is trying to avoid something. If it's less than, then you would have achieved the goal you would have achieved the habit by sticking to an amount below the maximum amount. You can also track. You begin by saying track and then a variable, something that you want to track. It can be tracking weight or anything else, any number that you want to track. And you can also set the target as being a high number. Let's say number of followers on a social media platform. You're aiming for a higher number, or revenue that you want to make. You can set a higher number to aim for, or it could be losing weight and you're aiming for a lower number. You can also have tiered habits. What this means is you set within the habit the target of 5 or 10 or 20 minutes, or a count of 5, 10, 20. I want to do 5 kettlebell swings or 10 or 20. And the reason why this is really important is because you want to set a quantity that is a show-up habit. And you just want to get yourself to show up to the habit without feeling intimidated by it. If you say, I want to walk for an hour, I want to walk for half an hour, this might be a bit intimidating. But if you say, I want to walk for 3 minutes, it helps you to show up to that habit. And then you say, actually, I'd like to aim even higher for 10 minutes. This would be a great level up from 3. Or I want to go even further and aim for 30 minutes. But the initial number encourages you to show up to that habit, and then you can nudge yourself to aim for higher numbers within the tiers that you've set for yourself. And a standard habit of not mentioning numbers, quantities, things like that would just show you a tick or an X to determine whether you've practiced the habit or you've skipped the habit. Right now, the settings only has one setting, which is the ability to expand the habit. If you set a duration for the habit, you can see it as being larger than other habits if it takes more than 5 minutes. And I'm constantly developing this app, so I'll be adding some more settings within this button. You can switch languages from the top button. This is where you sign up and sign in, and you can also switch to dark mode. And this is where you control the day you want to see, especially if you want to set a task for a specific day. You can go to that day and set the task. Now, I'd like to show you how I would use this application. One other clarification, I do have a page for setting goals, and you can set the goals based on life area. And there's also a progress page where it will show you the wheel of life, or what progress you're making across areas of your life. So you can notice whether you're approaching all your goals in a balanced and healthy way, or you're focused a bit more on one area rather than other areas, which is fine. If this is the goal that you do want to focus on a specific area for this season of your life, this is totally okay and acceptable, but at least you're able to see that visually as well as track whatever you've made. I do have a lot of improvements to make on the goals and the progress, so I'm going to focus on the day view. What I can do is, first of all, let's look at the suggestions, what they look like. This is, for the time being, what habits I would recommend to regulate our nervous systems, given the fact that in the Middle East, we're currently facing a lot of uncertainty regarding the war that's happening. So you can see suggestions based on this goal, being able to calm yourself down and regulate your nervous system. And there are Islamic practices that you can incorporate into your day. There are body and breath practices that you can incorporate, mind and reflection. So whatever habits you feel would be suitable for you, you can actually incorporate them in your day. And you can also look at habits by life area. So what are spiritual habits you want to explore? You don't have to go with the suggestions. Obviously, they're just suggestions, but you can get some ideas and then incorporate the habits that you want within the application. You can also, if you have a list of habits that you want to develop, you can actually dump the list of habits and the app will create individual habits for each line that you have a habit on. And then you can delete, you bulk select and then delete some of the habits that you don't want to incorporate into the app. And then, so for every life area, you can look at suggestions. You can also look at suggestions based on time of day. So the morning, work time, off time, or night time. By the way, these suggestions were added by Claude, and some of them I don't really agree with. As an example, eat the frog. This is not what I would recommend, but it might be beneficial for some, and you can take it into consideration. By personality, so what are the recommendations some successful people have, or habits that they've practiced and you might want to incorporate into your day? And you can simply add these habits and they go into, I didn't specify the time of day, so it went into the inbox. Okay. And if I want to add my own habits, I press the plus button. I can add a subsection within this section. What I have done, because this is not me signed in, this is just showing you the blank state of the application. What I've done is for specific sections of the day. So for example, nighttime, I have habits that I do in the bedroom, that I do in the bathroom, that I do in the kitchen. So I've added subsections within nighttime for the different places that I'd like to practice certain habits. And you can have the sections be representative of location, be representative of type of activity or time of day, depending on how you feel most comfortable organizing your day. But let's say I want to add a few habits. I want to use a tongue scraper in the morning. And then I also want to do 10 squats and do 20 wall push-ups. So I'm adding as many habits as I like, and these became counters because I mentioned quantities. I can also add meditate for 5 minutes. It created a counter. No social media in bed. It added the no sign. Track weight. It added the ability to add a value for tracking, and I can switch. This means we're tracking upward, so increase is good, but I want to track downward. Decrease is good. I'm aiming to lower my weight, so I switch the tracking. Here I've added some habits. Now I can do bulk select and move all these into the morning section. This is how I can organize my day. What I would recommend is that you prompt yourself in terms of saying, what goals do I want to achieve? Maybe what problems I'm looking to overcome in my life? What are the current habits that I have that are holding me back? How can I overcome them? And then you come up with suggestions on habits that you can incorporate into your day, and then find the right time to incorporate those habits. During a work time, what would make you be the most productive? What do you need to focus on? How can you eliminate distractions? And you set reminders for yourself within this section of time in order for you to operate at your best. So this is the basics of the Rabbits app. I would also mention something that I still need to flesh out, but the principle is extremely important. All the habits that I added to my day, it means I'm willing to practice them now. But sometimes we have habits that we're still not ready to practice. I know they'll be good for me, but if I experience any resistance or any reluctance towards those habits, incorporating them into my day would likely make me feel apprehensive about developing habits in general. And if I put a lot of habits that I don't want to do into my day, maybe even one habit, it may lead me to not want to open the application. So anything that I put into my day, I should be willing to actually practice it. Anything I'm not willing to practice, I can adjust the commitment here. So instead of saying I'm willing to practice all of these, I can say I'm not willing to make my bed. This is something I'm not currently comfortable with. Why isn't it dropping? Wait. This could be a bug. Let me see. Yeah, I can adjust the next. So here I said making my bed is not something I'm prepared to do right now. So I will leave it for another time. When I feel ready to do this habit, then I can incorporate it into now. Otherwise, I put it as next. And anything that I put as next or soon or later will not show up in my day as a habit because I'm not willing to commit to it right now. And this is an extremely important principle to ensuring that you succeed with habits. If you're trying to commit to habits where you feel reluctance or resistance, then you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. You want to aim to commit to habits that you feel willing to do. You want to do them, which is why you can reduce their size for you to be able to commit to them. And then what's going to happen is that you'll naturally feel more inclined to do bigger and better habits. But you don't push yourself to do habits you're not willing to do from the very beginning. This is an extremely common mistake that people make, and I hope by using the Rabbits app, you're able to overcome this resistance and reluctance towards habits. Commit to habits that you want to do, that are small enough for you to succeed with, and then you will want bigger habits because doing the small habits will feel too easy. It's not challenging enough. So then you will aspire to do more and more. And then when you feel ready, incorporate bigger habits into your day. I hope this video was useful, and I hope you give Rabbits a chance. Visit makehabitslikeRabbits.com in order to get started.